In this lesson, you're going to learn about the 6 important skills that all scientists should know. You probably use a lot of them on a daily basis, and you may not even realize that. So the first one, let me back up. So science occurs naturally and spontaneously in our minds. We're always questioning things. By logically breaking down the steps in the way that we think, we use these different steps of the process to answer questions about things around us. Okay? The process is not just useful in science, however. Any situation that requires critical thinking can use these steps. Okay? So they include observing qualities, measuring quantities, sorting and classifying, inferring, predicting, experimenting, and communicating. When we observe, it's because we have some question that we want answered, or we see something and go, wow, did you just see that? So when you observe, you are observing qualities. When you observe qualities, you are using your 5 senses. So what details would you see? For example, can I smell it? Can I touch it? Can I hear it or taste it? Can I break it into pieces? Notice the sentence. I noticed Miss Vitti has a large rough object in her hand. It looks like it has sharp edges, and I believe it's a rock. I wonder what will happen if she throws it. So that's an example of making an observation. Okay. Here's another example. If someone is blindfolded and then asked to put their hand inside of a box and try to identify something, that's using your sense of touch. As I mentioned, observing is all of your 5 senses. Okay. Next one is measuring quantities. That's using math. So if you say it rained 2 inches last night, everybody can get an idea on how much rain that is. So continuing with our idea of Miss Vitti's object, you could say that it probably weighs more than an apple, but less than a bowling ball. Okay? So you can find masses of liquids that have the same volume. You can use technology to find the speed of a toy truck. You can measure the distance a marble travels. And remember, in science, we are always using the metric system. Next step is to sort and classify. So finding patterns in things is one way that we organize our thoughts in our mind. So when we sort and classify, we separate things into groups with how they're related to each other. That looks like a rock. I know that shape and size are hard and have sharp edges. I could classify it with other rocks, other heavy objects, sharp objects. Okay? When you see butterflies, you would classify them with the colors that are on their wings or the shapes of their wings. Okay? So a couple more examples: using a magnet to classify objects as magnetic or non-magnetic, using a balance to sort objects according to mass. Okay. Next important process would be making an inference. An inference is when you expect something to happen, but something different occurs. Okay. So, for example, you may have been surprised to find out the object in Miss Vidi's hand was a sponge. The sponge looked like a rock, but it was not. Some other examples: when you write a conclusion at the end of an investigation, you are inferring what would happen. Okay. Another one is predicting. Now, predicting and inferring are two different things. You can predict that someone in the world is going to die today, and it will probably come true. You can infer that because you see a rainbow, it must have rained while the sun was shining. Okay? So, with a prediction, before something happens, you say what you think is going to happen. So before Miss Vidi threw her object, what did you think would happen? That's making a prediction. And the last one is communicating. When we communicate, we share what we learned and the steps we took with other people that have the same types of questions. So, for example, at a science fair, you would communicate what you researched and you would share it with everybody at that science fair. Another example is creating a line graph to show a relationship between speed and mass. And communicating also includes when something goes wrong, talking to somebody about problems that may have occurred during your process. So I hope you use some of these or all of these processes on a regular basis, because they help to improve your critical thinking skills.